Spacebourne 2 is not your average space game. With thousands of star systems, a heavy focus on diplomacy, and the ability to create your very own faction, this game is shaping up to be a truly unique experience with some highly lofty goals. Now, what's especially intriguing to me here is the sheer number of times that this game has been recommended to me. I've seen many recommendations in YouTube comments, on Discord, as well as across the internet. The game has very favourable reviews on Steam with a very positive rating at 82%, so looking very good. That's not to say it's perfect, it is very janky as we'll talk about in just a moment, but this is a game in early access, and underneath all that jank is a game that just may be very special indeed. So what is Spacebourne 2 all about? Well, it's a massive single-player space-based RPG. Here are some bullet points about the game. There's tens of thousands of solar systems, massive planetary surfaces to explore, character customization for people who like that sort of thing, the ability to establish control of factions, rich diplomacy systems, side missions scattered throughout the galaxy, and what the developer claims to be a living galaxy with a vast array of spaceships and random encounters. It all almost sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? And this is where opinions may become a little bit divided. It does have absolutely everything that we just listed, but as to whether it's too good to be true, that will be dependent on your point of view. This is an indie game, and it is, rather ambitiously, being created by a single developer. So this means we get a space game that contains many of the features that people have long been asking for, but also means that the game is not, and probably will never be, anything on the scale of something like Starfield. But that's not the goal here, just simply pointing out that people will need to set their expectations accordingly. So, keeping that in mind, and if you're willing to accept all that, Spacebourne 2 is certainly worth a look. It's currently available on Steam, priced at around £16. I believe that's roughly $20 if you're in the US. And what you get for your money is a game that absolutely feels full of potential and ambition. But one which also feels full of jank, bugs, and, well, a few problems here and there. It's a contradiction within the game itself, and one which is backed up by the reviews you'll find on Steam. These reviews, you'll notice, have many dozens of hours, in some cases hundreds of hours within the game itself, very likely from a pre-access build, and here you can see those contradictions at play, with some people absolutely loving the game and other people being more than a little frustrated, shall we say. The general feeling, however, is that it's worth wading through all the jank to find what lays beneath. Now, the game does go through a very extensive tutorial, a little bit too much in my own opinion, but it does get you used to the game itself. It'll place you in a little shack and a building at the start of a city. From here, you'll have to go and talk with your grandmother, I think, or maybe it's an aunt, and she will moan to you about being a bit behind on your rent payments. From there onwards, you're set to go find a job and earn your keep. You'll immediately notice that the game is filled with AI text, or AI text-to-speech. Not the best way of doing it, but it is pretty much a popular way of doing games that are in early access, as generally speaking, it's far cheaper than using voice actors and far more convenient. I'm sure full-on voice actors will come at a later date. Now, this start area, which you can see on the screen right here, this is the first city that you're introduced to, and it really does have a wonderful vibe. I absolutely loved the feel and look of this. A very nice style that is evocative of a Star Wars galaxy at its best time. That said, you'll also notice that all the NPCs here simply are standing around. Yet even still, they manage to convey a sense of hustle and bustle to the city. That's largely aided by the wonderful ambience, the wonderful audio to accompany this. The first time you encounter your starship, it really does feel like a hunk of junk, especially into comparison to some of the other ships you'll see flying around, and this is a fact that will be brought to your attention more often than not. So it's very easy to jump inside your ship. You just press the F key and you'll automatically spawn inside your ship, similar to how it works with games like Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky. The flight model is more simulation than it is arcadey, but that for me actually works, and you can also play from first person or third person, although I did have a bit of an issue here. Once I got into the third person camera, I couldn't figure out a way to get back inside the ship again. Kept pressing C, but it just kept cycling around the various external cameras. Getting up into the sky and flying around the surface of the planets had a wonderful feel to it. The planets, for the most part, seem to be fairly empty and fairly bland, but they do look really nice, and it's a wonderful feeling to fly up into the sky and get amongst the clouds. This is something I always wanted to see in the likes of Elite Dangerous. Unfortunately, it never actually delivered that, but it is available here if you want to try that out. Unfortunately though, getting up into space is not seamless. There will be a transition screen here, a load screen to all intents and purposes, but it doesn't take very long to transition to space. And once you're up there, you're free to fly around within the local star system. There we are looking at the planet again. Combat itself is a good mix of being a pure arcadey and having a few little sim elements. If you've ever played Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, you'll be familiar with the way combat actually plays out. Select a target here, hold down the right mouse button, and your ship will auto-chase the target, and then you simply have to control the weapons as well as the ship's defences. So for those people looking for a highly skilled combat game, you may be a little bit disappointed, but for those who want to have a bit of a balance here with that type of activity, then this could be the right approach. Ultimately, I hope that there's some settings in the future that will allow players to choose between what type of combat they'd actually prefer. Okay, so at this point I haven't played too much Spacebourne just yet, and I really want to hold off on showing any further footage and having any deep dive discussions on the game until I've really well and truly got to grips with it. For now, with this video, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because it's one of those titles that does deserve the attention, but for whatever reason is flying beneath the radar. So if you want to take a look at this, the link is in the video description below. Do check it out. And if you have played it, let me know your thoughts and feelings about it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what